Welcome back into Full Throttle, the Presidio Group's automotive industry podcast. I'm your host, Jason Stein, Managing Director of Presidio. Great to have you back listening again with us here today.
The worst thing here is the political cycle. And I say that because, Ford took a $19 billion charge off and GM just took a $7 billion charge off. Those charge offs aren't all cash. That's a lot of that is what they could do from a tax standpoint, what they could allocate to the investment that they could allocate to electrification. And we don't need to get into the weeds. The bottom line is a lot of cash hit the floor because the government decided to be the driver of demand instead of buyer preference. And tragically, what really hit the floor was billions and billions and billions of dollars. And this is not unique to Ford. Billions and billions and billions of dollars from product development. It's all gone. Mm-hmm. All the electric product that was planned, for the most part, not all of it, but the majority of it is gone.
For the last 6 years, my guest has spent more time in meetings with Ford Motor Company than in his own dealerships. That's probably not an exaggeration. While most dealer principals were focused on navigating COVID, supply chain disruption, and a volatile retail environment, my guest was also helping Ford build its commercial strategy, rethink its electrification approach, and renegotiate the rules that govern how dealers and manufacturers work together. He's Eddie Stivers. Eddie is a multi-store dealer operator, and just until a couple of months ago, he was the chairman of the Ford Dealer Council. That role put him in the middle of some of the most complicated, high-stakes conversations in the industry. How Ford should approach electrification, how dealers could realistically implement Model E, how policy decisions upstream would affect customers, service departments, and profitability downstream. In this conversation, Eddie takes us inside that process, not in press release language, but in plain terms. What worked, what didn't work, what surprised him, what changed. We talk about how Ford and its dealers negotiated real policy changes, why the industry misread consumer behavior on EVs, what it actually takes to influence a manufacturer and when you can't, and how the relationship between Ford and its dealer body evolved over the last few years. It's a rare, candid look at how decisions get made when the stakes are high and the answers are not necessarily obvious. He's Eddie Stivers. This is Full Throttle.
Hi, I'm Eddie Stivers, and this is Presidio's podcast, Full Throttle.
He's a man with a lot on his plate at all times, but no more so than maybe his recent experience that just wound down in November, and he is no longer. He is now the former chairman of the Ford Dealer Council. Eddie, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jason.
Let's get to that. I can only imagine it was an interesting experience for you. Tell us a little bit about your time leading the Dealer Council.
Well, it was the last of 6 years on Dealer Council, and it was beyond interesting. We started right before COVID. First meeting was in person, and then walked right into COVID, and so everything went remote. I was privileged enough to have the opportunity to lead the first Ford Pro, which is Ford's commercial arm subcommittee, and help create the Ford Pro Elite Commercial Service Center program, as well as policies. So that was a lot of fun. And then we moved to even more fun, and I'm being facetious. I had the opportunity to then lead the Model E subcommittee, which dealt with the Model E, the electrification part of Ford's business, which was controversial, no doubt, and quite heavy lifting and tough sledding. Then after that, was elected to the vice chair role and served under Dave Wilson from Maryland for a year, and finished up my year just this past November and handed the reins over to Steve Blazing. So it was certainly a great experience. I had the opportunity to negotiate a lot of policy with the motor company. We're as tough as it was, and as hard as the work is. And I mean, there's no doubt we worked on Dealer Council more than we worked on our own business for many of the weeks. But we have a unique relationship with the Ford Motor Company. Although we can have tough things to deal with, we certainly won't always agree. But the Ford Motor Company is absolutely unique in terms of its willingness to interact with the dealer council. There's dealer councils out there where they present a deck and tell you this is what we're doing, so that we can walk out to the dealer body and say, hey, we reviewed this with your dealer council. That's just not the case at Ford. It is a collaborative effort. We absolutely are not always aligned, but we're at our core aligned more often than not, because at our most basic, we're interested in selling cars, parts, and service to customers. And if we don't buy it from the motor company, they well understand, probably better than any OEM, that if we don't buy it, it doesn't get sold to the end user. So because of that, we are able to affect policy change at a level that is absolutely unique amongst OEMs. I mean, we were able this last year to negotiate a 20% increase to the floor plan credit. We were able to negotiate the termination prior to the new administration coming in, the termination of all of the electrification and Model E standards. We were able to negotiate a level 3 charger reimbursement. There were actually 12. We were able to entirely renegotiate the scoring system on our CSI and NPS customer satisfaction ratings, and that's just the start of it. And we were able to make common sense changes that made sense to the dealer body. And I think the key to our success, because we clearly got more done this last year than in many, many, many years, and the key to our success was that we took on, we didn't fall into the trap of just asking for balance sheet moves, asking for more money from the manufacturer. We concentrated on policy issues that affect the dealer body, and if resolved, would provide either a more streamlined work process or more streamlined system within the dealership, or a better customer experience, and more often than not would result in cost savings for both the dealer and the motor company. And because we chose win-wins, we absolutely got a lot done.
I can imagine that your experience after having been involved, your perspective on dealer OEM relations has changed considerably.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah. What was it before? What is it now? I mean, it sounds to me like you've got you mentioned at the outset, you have an open dialogue. You have a real partnership that exists.
Yes.
And maybe there's a perception that that's not always the case.
Jason, I can tell you definitively that there were only 2 Sundays during my chairmanship where I wasn't on the phone with Rob Caffel or Brett Buren. Rob runs sales, Brett runs FCSD, or one of their direct reports, where we were discussing, okay, this is what we're thinking as a manufacturer. What is the dealer body's reaction going to be? What don't we understand? Where are the minefields? What's the unintended? Here's what we're trying to accomplish. What's the unintended consequence? How does this affect the buyer? How does this affect your service customer? How is this going to affect your ability to market automobiles, sell automobiles, sell parts, sell labor? And that's very unique. They wanted to know, how is this going to play out? And sometimes it was very positive. Sometimes it was, whoa, we don't want to go there, and here's why. And the reality is we're in the same business, but we're in 2 very different businesses. And as much as we'd like to think we understand OEMs, we don't understand their cost accounting. We don't understand their true cost unless you're in the sausage making of product development. We certainly don't understand manufacturing and the complexities behind a supply chain. And most of us don't understand labor union negotiation and stockholder equity. Most of us, other than the really big consolidators and the public companies, don't have to worry about stockholder equity. We worry about our own families. And so getting to understand the pressures that they're under are totally different than the pressures that we're under. And that's what perhaps makes the relationship between Ford and its dealer body, and specifically its dealer council, so unique, is they were willing to listen to what what pains us, what will pain us, what could pain us, and what their policy adjustment or their margin adjustment or their marketing program or their incentive plan or their discount plan or whatever it is, they were willing to listen to, okay, what's the downstream effect here? And that's why it takes so much time at the Ford Motor Company at being representing Ford dealers on Ford's dealer council, is because they will engage you so much. The raw amount of work that goes in by those 20 some odd members, 27 plus members plus leadership is unbelievable. I mean, at the leadership level, it's not unusual to spend 50 hours a week on dealer council, and that's not answering the phones of dealer problems and dealer complaints. At Ford, that's engaging in subcommittee work and meetings with different levels of middle and upper management, and hashing through these programs prior to them rolling out. And when something gets out there that doesn't work in the marketplace, trying to figure out how to walk it back in a manner that is cost effective to the motor company and acceptable to the dealer body.
Yeah, mutual respect, mutual education moments. What did you learn now that the smoke has cleared a little bit on regulation and the announcements have been made about walking back certain programs? What did you learn about the complexity of trying to meet government demands while balancing consumer sentiment or lack thereof, consumer preference on EVs, and where Ford's position now on all of it?
Okay, well, let me finish your first question. Jason, I was served on the National Dealer Council back in the 2000s as a much younger man, and it was totally different. It was far more standard dealer council. Here's your deck. Here's what we're going to do. We hear your complaints. Let us take that back, which was code word for thank you very much for your opinion. We're not going to go down that path. And that really changed sometime in this last decade, and it has hit overdrive with the leadership of Andrew Frick and Daniel Justo, respectively. And Andrew and Daniel well. Rob Caffel, Brett Buren, Kathy O'Callahan over at Credit. And it really, Matt Atkinson at Ford Pro, these folks are super collaborative. And look at Ford's results. Look at the market share increase that they just brought home. Heck, they beat Toyota in the first half of the year. They finished over a 12 retail share for the first time in I don't know how long, and a 13 retail share in December. And that all comes from a collaborative working environment between the dealer body and the OEM. So Ford has changed. And Ford has changed for the better. Now, electrification and the controversy therein notwithstanding, and which is really forced by their hand was forced by the government, and the quality issues that come from legacy engineering errors, 10 years ago that are really the driver behind our recalls. This team at Ford is the best I've ever worked with and I've ever been around in terms of dealer relations. So marching forward to your next question, if you'd reiterate it a little bit, I think you're asking, hey, what does it look like? What does it look like from your perspective now that the government has shifted a little bit here?
Yeah, exactly right.
So the worst thing here is the political cycle. And I say that because Ford took a $19 billion charge off, and GM just took a $7 billion charge off. Those charge offs aren't all cash. That's a lot of that is what they could do from a tax standpoint, what they could allocate to the investment that they could allocate to electrification. And we don't need to get into the weeds. The bottom line is a lot of cash hit the floor because the government decided to be the driver of demand instead of buyer preference. And tragically, what really hit the floor was billions and billions and billions of dollars. And this is not unique to Ford. Billions and billions and billions of dollars from product development. It's all gone. Mm-hmm. All the electric product that was planned, for the most part, not all of it, but the majority of it is gone. And that's not just at Ford. That's at Chevrolet. That's at Stellantis. That's everywhere.
Yes.
And the billions of dollars that were wasted on this, and it was forced by the federal government. And it's interesting because Toyota the entire time is saying, look, with the same amount, let's be practical here. The same amount of rare earths it takes to make 7 electric vehicles, we can make 90 hybrids and be cleaner and not tear up the environment, digging and not lose any money. And yet we did it. I mean, shame on our government, honestly. Right. And I don't mean to be political here, sure, but shame on us for this, for not, if our goal was to be clean, we should have flexed into hybrids. If our goal was not to disturb and destroy the environment, if our goal was to be free and allow consumers to choose and clean up our air, it was hybrid. It was always hybrid.
Right.
And so it's just tragic. It's just absolutely tragic what we went through. And it's not just the motor companies. Think about all the design and engineering that had to happen at all of these suppliers that plan to produce parts for these vehicles.
Tier 1s, Tier 2s, Tier 3s, absolutely.
Tier 3s. Yeah. These are small manufacturing businesses. Think of, and it's not just about the factory owners and the engineers and the software developers. It's about the workers that got laid off as these suppliers folded because of this nonsense. It's really sad.
Suppliers that are actually in a very difficult state at this point, and all the by the way, to reinforce your point, all the intellectual capital that went into this experiment.
You bet. And that's what it was, as an experiment. And I hope we learned from it. But the most frightening thing is looking out 3 years from now. The product cycle, as you know, the product cycle is give or take 6 years. Give or take. Some manufacturers can do it in 4, some take 7. It depends on the complexity of the product, and that's not a Ford thing. It takes about 6 years from drawing board to production for a product. And we're in a 4-year, at best case scenario, we're in a 4-year political cycle. Does this all flip again? I mean, what becomes of the United States automobile industry, an industry that drives 1 in 12 jobs in the United States? If we do this again, what happens to it? I don't think it can stand it, quite frankly. And this is one of the most resilient manufacturing businesses in the world. There's not another manufacturing business in the world that drives 1 in 12 jobs in a country. And we could destroy it if we unsensibly and unthoughtfully flip again. And so that's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, not to mention the product plans, Eddie, that all of the work that would have gone into hybrids or internal combustion engine vehicles was all put on ice because, so to speak.
No pun intended, right?
because of the effort that went into products that now you'll never see the light of day. There's an estimate that's been made that a year and a half to 2 years of intellectual property was lost during that experiment. So yeah, and so you were at the ground level, you were at the dealer level, and trying to work with Ford to understand how to pivot and when to pivot. And I have to imagine those conversations were intense. I have to imagine there was a lot of uncertainty around what to do next, because from your perspective, you're hearing from other dealers who are saying, look, I can't sell some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And their hands are tied. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. It was probably the most frustrating. My time on Model E was probably the most frustrating of my tenure on council. And that was in part because there was a belief, and it wasn't just a Ford thing. There was a belief that electrification was going to usher in an entire new set of buyer preferences, an entire new set of buyer demands, buyer behaviors, and was going to be an inflection point in the consumer experience. And so not only are we trying to reinvent transportation, we're trying to reinvent the purchase experience, the ownership experience, the transaction in and of itself, the culture within the dealership, the processes within the dealership, the digital sales process. And at the end of the day, we're sitting there going, whoa, time out. Car buying didn't become different. Our consumer that is buying an electric vehicle tomorrow is the same person that's driving a combustion vehicle today. And we believe at our heart of hearts that electrification and PHEV and HEV and diesel and gas, they're all just powertrains. They power the vehicle to get from A to B. Just because we're putting batteries in it and taking power to the wheels in a new way doesn't change who the consumer was yesterday and who the same consumer is going to be tomorrow. But you could not have convinced most OEM leaders of this. They saw Tesla doing something different and were convinced that that was going to be the way, period, end of story. And so the biggest friction, where the friction point was, we believed, the dealer body believed, and I think many of the senior executives at Ford, although they weren't in a position to say it, I think they truly believed that electrification is a powertrain, just like the dealers. And that just because you make a purchasing decision to acquire a new powertrain or a different powertrain that meets your use case requirements doesn't make you a different consumer, doesn't give you new demands. And we weren't going to reinvent the entire ecosystem of an automobile transaction because it happens to be an electric vehicle. And so that was the rub, honestly. And thankfully, we've gotten through that. And we've gotten through that with great success. And that experience made us stronger. Look, we're a family. Sometimes families don't agree. And you sit at the kitchen table and you hash it out. Now, that kitchen table sit was about a 2-year sit. But that was a long supper.
It was a long supper.
A long supper. But we got there, and that's what mattered. And we got there with respect, and we got there in a manner where we can still move forward together. And generally, the Ford dealer body is a pretty happy dealer body. And generally, we have the same level of respect. The dealer body has the same level of respect conveyed to it by the motor company and by the Ford family and by Jim Farley and by Andrew Frick and by Daniel Justo. And that's what tells you it is a family, because we got through it and we're moving forward.
You're still there. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Fascinating perspective. A few other topics as we head into 26. U.S. auto dealers, we have discovered, remain optimistic but realistic about their profitability prospects. We did our year-end 2025 dealer direction survey, which I know you've seen a few times. While vehicle affordability is a top concern, most dealers, Eddie, expect stable or improving business performance this year. Are you on that side of the equation?
I think you have to be. So profitability, I think, across the board took a little bit of a hit last year. At least that was our experience. Not a huge hit, but the dealers that are operating dealerships today have been through, by and large, for the most part, in the prime of their professional years, have operated through the Great Recession and have now operated through COVID and have now operated through the electrification, we'll call it, debacle. And in a matter of 15 years of your career, those are some big ones. And so I think the dealer operators that are operating now that have been through those things in the last 15 years, they sense tightening faster. They have the playbook on how to tighten their business operations when necessary. And so I think I can tell you definitively, in our world, we knew exactly what to do, how to do, and we've tightened, and we're already seeing the profitability rise. And that's not necessarily, Jason, because we have greater margins. We don't. We're gonna be more profitable on tighter gross margins. It's not because we have greater margins in the service department, greater parts margins. Quite to the contrary, most of the OEMs have tightened dealer compensation programs, have tightened markup and margin. The commoditization of new vehicles and used vehicles now has accelerated. And so our transactional margins, unless you have a brand new in-demand product, have tightened. But we are learning to be more responsive, faster, better business people. And beyond that, I think, Jason, there's not a more optimistic industry than the retail car business. you can't be successful in this business if you have any Debbie Downer in you. And so we're always optimistic. Stay calm. It's all going to be okay. So I think if there's a prospect for normalcy, we're going to be good.
The story is world ending. The headline is dealers remain optimistic.
That's right. That's 100% right. And you combine that with how resilient and quick we have learned to be, and how we have to run our businesses to be successful. That's clearly the reason when we're forecasting, give or take, basically a flat SAR. We've seen a little margin degradation. We don't have affordable vehicles as an industry, and we're still optimistic because we know that as an industry, we know how to migrate our business and turn the little dials to come out okay.
Our president and our mutual friend George Corollas, I think, said it best. Challenges remain: regulatory, tariff policy, cost, affordability. But most dealers are positioning for measured growth and
That's
are
right.
remaining attentive to factors that could affect both day-to-day profitability and long-term value.
That's 100% right.
Yeah.
No doubt. And you know what? We've gotten a little help on interest rates, and because the retail car business is one of the most people don't recognize this, but it's one of the most highly leveraged businesses there is. I mean, you have a book net worth of X and a floor plan of X times 10. And that's that's if you don't have any acquisition debt associated with the dealership. I mean, it's a highly leveraged enterprise.
Right.
And so we're so interest rate sensitive, not just from a retail buyer's perspective, not just from interest rates don't just control the appetite of our buyer to transact, they control our expense structure too. And so we've had the double whammy of rapidly increasing cost of vehicles. The average vehicle is up, almost 30% from 2019, 5 years up 30%. And so we've had a 30% increase in cost to floor plan. And then on top of that, we watched interest rates go from 3 to 7 or higher, depending on who you were floored with. And so I think part of the optimism is we got 3/4 of a point, 75 basis points reduction toward the end of the year last year. We got another 25 points. We're all hoping for another 25 here this spring. I just, maybe I've gone over by 25, but the sum total is at least 100 basis points in relief. And that's a big deal.
Yeah. Our one of the other subjects in our dealer direction survey was about Chinese brands. 46.9% view of the dealers view Chinese brands as both an opportunity and a threat. 33.5% said it's a threat. Where do you sit on that scale?
Oh, well, I think right in between. I think it's a threat because of how China chooses to subsidize its industries. It subsidizes rare earth element mining. It controls currency valuation. It subsidizes production at times. In certain areas, it subsidizes labor. And so you're never going to be on an even playing field with the Chinese. And so I think that is fundamentally frightening, should be fundamentally terrifying to an OEM in a country that does not play that way. And we, this is trickle down economics to an extent. What should scare them should frighten us as well.
Right.
Now, is it an opportunity if they come in? Sure. If they franchise. Have the Chinese proven to treat any entity properly and fairly, consistently over a long period of time? I think there's some short-term optimism. Yeah, I'd love another successful franchise. If you really look at it, is it healthy how they behave in business? Is it healthy for our system, for our economy, for the American worker? No. And I don't think you're going to see, they'll find their way in here somehow, some way. someday, but I don't see them as a domestic threat because I don't think they're going to be able to sell here for a very, very long time. And beyond that, Jason, if you really think about what is, no politician has said this, but I believe at least part of the reason that we had to blow up our free trade agreements and move to tariffs beyond Trump's belief in tariffs as a funding source for government. I think he fundamentally believes that's better than income tax. But the Chinese used our free trade system to backdoor cheap tier 3 and tier 2 parts.
Right.
And they used Mexico as a backdoor. Yep. And part of this was shutting the back door on China. I mean, you go down to Mexico, you look at a lot of these parts companies, and the boxes are all in Chinese. And those are the, tier 4, tier 3, tier 2 parts. And, the commodities were Chinese. The copper was from China. The zinc was from China. The rare earth elements in the batteries were from China. The subcomponentry was from China. And so China was just skirting the tariff policy, no different than how they've exported a lot of their lower end production to Vietnam. Vietnam became kind of China's Mexico, if you will.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's not lost upon me, at least, that there was no other way to close that door. That was not the intent of our agreements. That was not the design of our agreements. Now, the tragedy is that the American auto industry, the North American automotive industry, developed its supply chain within the confines of that free trade zone. And so that's why it's been so impactful to manufacturers, is the only way to shut the door on China was to fundamentally alter our production chain, our supply chain. And that's a painful thing.
Yeah, especially given varying labor rates around the world. Yeah. Let me ask you one more thing, because I could be here with you for days and
Sure.
and not stop. Our brand desirability ranking, Presidio's brand desirability ranking, this is reflects which brands are most appealing to dealers who respond to our survey. And that's the desirability of owning stores. Ford ranked 9th in the latest survey, which was the top 10 for the first time since the ranking's inception. And all because sentiment around Ford has benefited from some recent improvements in dealer relations. So should we credit you for Ford cracking the top 10 of our brand desirability ranking?
No, but I think there's a lot of credit. There's a lot of credit to Elena Ford.
Yeah.
Credit to senior leadership at Ford. I mean, Jim Farley gets a tough time sometimes, but he had to greenlight all the changes that we made. He had to say it's okay, and so he deserves some credit. Andrew Fritz certainly deserves some credit. Daniel Justo, Kathy O'Callahan. Probably no one deserves more credit than the dealer relations staff and Rob at Ford and Rob Caffel. And Matt Atkinson. And I know I'm going to upset some people because Brett Buren, I'm going to upset some people that listen to you because I didn't name their names, but there was a concerted effort. I mean, a beyond concerted effort to fix this. I mean, Elena Ford went to being the global dealer relations person at the Ford Motor Company. And Ford said, we're going to have good relations with our dealer body. And I'll be honest, one of our greatest priorities. So we committed we had 2 commitments when we started my chairmanship. We're going to look at every single policy issue through the lens of dealer profitability and business simplicity. Number 1, and number 2, we're not going to do anything. And we're not in complete control, but if we could, we were not going to allow anything to happen that would further erode the relationship between the dealer and the manufacturer. And we were going to drive, and this is a big one, simplicity and interaction between dealers and Ford. One of the toughest things about being a Ford dealer is how complex Ford is as a company, how complex its product line is, all the niches it serves, and the complexities in doing business with Ford. That's really what differentiates Ford and Toyota. Great companies both. Toyota's a lot more simple. And so with complexity comes opportunity for unintended consequence and difficulty in operations. And so a lot of what we worked on was reducing complexities in operations. And so it's certainly not me. If anyone gets any credit, it's the folks from Ford. It's the 28 ladies and gentlemen that I worked with. It's John Kerner and Steve Blazing and Tony Helta. And all those guys that and girls that helped us drive the results that we drove, the 12 great achievements that we drove home. But look, results matter. At the end of the day, results matter. Period. End of story. We drove with the permission and participation of Ford. We drove home a lot of results. And you know what? It wasn't just desirability went up. But Ford went from way in the back of the classroom, like 26th, 27th, all the way to the middle in 2 short years in terms of J.D. Power's satisfaction numbers, dealer satisfaction numbers. And that's a big move. I think only Mercedes moved as much this last year. And so that is a credit to the relationship. Period. End of story. Full stop.
Yeah, well said. Love being with you. Thank you for the time. Congratulations on completing your chairmanship. And now you just get to focus on operations at all times, right, Eddie?
I'll tell you what, it's been absolutely wonderful. I didn't miss a varsity football game this year, this fall, which was wonderful. I was at almost every volleyball game. I'm going to get to coach lacrosse this spring. I've got 9 great dealerships that are all really headed in the right direction. Our new Ford. Really proud of my team at the different Ford stores. We finished at Chrysler. We finished number 1 in the state of Alabama for both the year and December. The brand new store in Union City, it's a year old. Was the fastest growing Metro Ford store in the country, and it finished in December. It was 22nd in the country. I got to brag on my people up in Birmingham, Alabama. They finished 43rd in the country in December. So it feels so good to be back, Jason, to just being a dad and a car dealer.
Yeah, I love it.
And so that's the greatest thing. Probably the greatest professional honor of my lifetime was having the opportunity to serve the Ford dealer body. My dad did. He served the Lincoln Mercury dealer body as chairman. My grandfather was a council member back in the 60s. So certainly greatest experience, greatest honor of my life. I'm so glad to just be a dad and a car dealer now, though.
And our retail team helped you out on the Subaru Decatur, which was acquired by
Lithia. Oh boy, we are grateful to Lithia for a great transaction. Absolutely grateful to George Carolus and the most professional transaction. We haven't sold much. We've bought a lot. Unbelievable, just flat unbelievable. And it makes it easy when you have a good partner that you're transacting with. And Lithia was a very good partner, but your team. Holy Toledo, top notch.
Wow. We'll end on that note. Thank you.
That's a good ending, right? Thank you to my sponsors.
What an absolute pleasure to spend time with you. Look forward to spending time at NADA with you as well. And best of luck in all of your endeavors going forward. You are an absolute treasure for this industry. Thank you, Eddie. Jason, you're the best. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Thank you. That's the 62nd episode of Full Throttle. Special thanks to my guest, Eddie Stivers. Thank you for listening. For a library of these episodes with industry leaders, go to thepresidiogroup.com. You can also find a library of these shows on the Presidio Group's YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jason Stein. We'll talk to you again next time.